Let's write our fluid stack payload. Fluid stack is a name that people came up with when they want to work with fluid system inside Fabric API. In this video, we will take a look at how we can send information about fluids over the network or serialization systems. Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Welcome to the Mentor Code Lab. If you were a Forge user, you know that Forge has something called capabilities. Capabilities was Forge's way of handling item inventories, handling fluids, and handling energy. However, in Fabric, they are divided into their own API systems. I don't know how to feel about these two approaches. I will talk about them in another video for sure at some point. But right now we are working with Fabric, so let's talk about fluid system in Fabric, a brief introduction, and at the same time writing our code. Now we are not going to talk about fluid transfer in this video. That is for another time. All we are caring here is to have a data system that will provide enough information for our fluids over the network or serialization systems. So each fluid inside Fabric is a fluid variant. For example, water is a fluid variant, or lava is a fluid variant. So the very first thing that we want to track over the network is the fluid, or actually we can call it variant or fluid variant, whatever. Normally we go with fluid. Then each fluid variant in any container has an amount. For example, a bucket. A bucket of water has a special amount. Compared to a bottle of water in Minecraft, a bucket is much more. So we are using some values to indicate how much of a fluid we have. And that is using a long, so long amount. Now you may ask, hey, why do we use long instead of integers? The reason is that people are smart enough. They know that some tech mod developers will use this system to create their own fluid tank, and fluid tanks can store huge amount of fluid, so they need to store big numbers, and the best way to store big numbers is a long. Also keep in mind that means that the limit of the amount of fluid for any container is the limit you have on the long. Of course we have an ID, so let's copy it, and it implements a payload, so let's add it, implements a custom payload. That's the ID, and we return the ID. Don't forget to change the string, so this is the fluid stack payload. Now why do we call it fluid stack? Because the amount shows some quantity of a fluid type. Of course, we can stack buckets of water, for example, on top of each other. We can stack the bottle of water, or I don't know, anything else. However, a container may have a bigger amount. Again, it looks like a stack of items. That is why we call it fluid stack in Fabric development community. Okay, we want the codec, so generate the codec, and I hate it when it puts this one on top. So it creates the codec with the T1 being, of course, the fluid type. Now, keep in mind, fluid variants has its own codec, and for getters, the second one is codec.long. Everything is simple enough. The packet codec, let me copy it from here. Close this guy. Now the packet codec is, none of them is this. This should be the fluid stack, and this one should be fluid stack, fluid stack, fluid stack. Okay, the first param should be fluid variant packet codec, and we want it to be the fluid. The second one would be the packet codecs dot long, and this is the fluid stack colon amount, and finally we have the payload. So nothing special here. The only thing that you need to understand here is that what we are sending over the network, or what we are serializing and deserializing, is not just the name of the fluid or the type of the fluid. There are more things into it because we have the amount. Also remember that fluid variant has its own methods. It has component maps, it has components, the fluid itself, and registry entry, and more things that you can use as you go forward. For example, if you get the fluid, you will have tons of other methods into that system. For example, get bucket field sound, or the bucket item of that fluid, or the collision box for that fluid, the default state of that fluid, the get height of that fluid, get level, get shape, state manager, and tick rate. So it's more complex than what you think. Also, keep in mind, at the same time, fluid is more complex compared to something like maybe the simplest item you have out there in the game. It's not as complex as the concept of transferring fluids around. These two are totally two different things. People mix them to each other. We will talk about the transfer API in Fabric, and it's totally different concept compared to only have a fluid variant. You can have a fluid variant of, I don't know, molten enderite, and you will put it on the ground, and it may behave like water, or it may not behave like a water, whatever. But that's it. You can't transfer it into any storage. So if you put that bucket of molten enderite into any container, nothing will happen, because now you need to transfer the fluid from the bucket item into a container of a fluid variant type. And these things are honestly the interesting parts of handling machines in any tech mod. We will talk about them in future. All I wanted to say is that you shouldn't get confused. Here we are not transferring anything to anywhere. We are just sending the information about a fluid and its amount over the network, or serialize it or deserialize it. And that's it. In the next video, we will come back and finish one of these two. And these two are working with the recipe system. And again, that's another complex concept.
If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on that bell so that when I publish a new video, you will get informed. Have fun, everyone. Bye.